Hello subscribers. The game you're seeing is Crisis in the Kremlin. It's a DOS game. I do have an application that at least allows me to record the game and the in-game audio, but it doesn't record anything I say in it. So it's going to be a rather quiet video because the game itself has no music whatsoever. So, yeah. Which is actually kind of annoying, really, the whole idea of no music. In this game, what you do is you play as one of three leaders of the Soviet Union. You play as either the leader of the Hardline faction, the leader of the Reformist faction, or the leader of the Nationalist faction. All of which, obviously, have their own ideals. The Hardlines want to uphold the Soviet traditions. The Reformists want to transition more towards democracy than the Nationalist Party, which is more of the moderate group, if I had to try to classify them as anything like that. The Nationalists, they just want to get a little bit away from the former Soviet traditions, but they don't want to go full-on democracy. And as you see here, this is just little description. I try to keep on there long enough for people to read without pausing the video, but obviously if you need to, you can pause the video to continue reading. Shockingly, the guy here in charge of the Reformist faction is apparently Mikhail Gorbachev, although the hardline guy I think looks a little bit more like Mikhail Gorbachev, but whatever. And yeah, actually, I'm reading it because I thought the application would be able to record audio, even though I do eventually tell myself, even I know this application probably won't actually record this anyway, so whatever. But yeah, so I find the game to be pretty entertaining. My issue is that I'm not able to save it all through the application I'm using, sadly, so literally this whole session here of only 4 years in game took me about an hour almost, just a little bit less than an hour. And yeah, so the hardliners want to uphold Soviet traditions, the nationalists want to end centralized authority, but they don't want to go full democracy and free market economy and everything, while the reformists are a little bit more extreme in what they want. So the hardliners are more Stalin, the nationalists are sort of your in-between guys. I would say the nationalists are probably a little bit closer to how the US is if you look at the progressive era after, well, really just the progressive era in general. I would say is about where the Nationalist Party more or less stands. Is they don't want full centralized government, but they obviously want some of it to at least regulate the way the economy and whatnot works, while the reformists want like literally no government intervention, period. So they're more of a like laissez-faire group, if I'm actually reading their description properly in the way they're described, is that they sound more like a laissez-faire kind of society. And I just play as them because I figure they might be the easiest. I've tried playing the hardliners. It's too difficult to be at all successful while still being part of the hardline faction. So, and here I'm actually kind of confused as to what I need to do. I didn't notice that I was supposed to press enter to at least open the book. I could have sworn you were supposed to type in a name for what you wanted to say, but I guess not. So, whatever. And the sounds are actually going to be pretty loud. I do actually turn them off for a little while, but I end up turning them back on because I found the game to be far too quiet without them. So, yeah, and I'll more or less try to talk you through what was going through my head with some of the decisions I make. And here I'm just turning on the names of the countries. And you'll see later that, well, I'm not going to spoil it now. No reason to. Yeah, there I go, turning off the sound. Here comes the national news in the Soviet Union, letting me know that the latest payload of the shuttle Discovery was said to contain experiments relating to space-based ABM weapons. And in case anyone doesn't know, ABM weapons are anti-ballistic missile weapons. So basically it's talking about what's it called? STI, or the Strategic Defense Initiative, and there we go, just talking about how what was it? I don't know, something about Moscow. I didn't get a chance to read that, but yeah, no. Basically, it's talking about what is commonly referred to as the Star Wars project, simply because of the fact that the concept was to use lasers. And it's just some random street humor. I don't know why I got this. This is the first time I've ever seen this. If things go on like this, we will be reduced to begging. From who? So what do you think of Pravda? Or Pravada? Or I don't know. No damn good. The paper is too thick. It keeps clogging up the toilet. I found that humor to be kind of stupid. And it does actually, the game does go across basically the entire globe. It does include everything north of the equator is in what you can do. So Cuba is there, but nothing happens in Cuba by this time, because everything that would have happened in Cuba has already happened. The game starts you in the 80s. If I'm correct, it's 85 when the game starts you. So you're there in like the final years of the Soviet Union. I don't think the game. Well, I'm sure the game has like an official end of your character dying, basically, but I'm not sure exactly. In this case, I only made it like 4 years, and I think changing my diplomatic policy is what led to some issues. I went to more of a defensive policy, and I think that's what led to certain events happening later on down the road. And here I'm just trying to at least open up a little bit in terms of my policy, or well, this not my policies, the Soviet Union's policies, so as to try to remove some government intervention to hopefully to earn me more money. And of course, socialist delegates are complaining that I'm opening up. They don't like it. And as you see down the bottom left-hand corner, it just tells you statistics. So food's 3 red bars, which isn't that great, but it's not terrible. It could be worse. And vote of no confidence. That's just happened because of the fact that I changed my policies and they didn't like my changes. I decided to pay whatever funds are necessary, which I think is what comes to bite me in the ass later when I don't have much money to spend on the budget. Yeah, because you'll see the gross national product just drops sharply eventually, even though employment is great. Personal income isn't great, but I mean, it's still pretty good. It's 3 red and 1 yellow. Yeah, there you go, turning the sound back on. And here comes TASS, my Ministry of Propaganda, and here, oh, they want to talk about glasnost. So, yeah. In this case, yada yada yada, I'm just reading the thing to myself. Because again, at this time I figure the application will record what I say, but it doesn't. And I decide either option C or option D. I can't remember which one it was, because I don't choose A or B or E, that I know for certain. But I think it might be D that I choose. But don't quote me on that, we'll see in just a little bit. And here I'm just talking to myself about how I'm not sure which option I want. And which one do I choose? Dun, dun. Oh, okay, yep, I chose D. That's what I thought I chose. Because obviously this is a post-recording. Yeah, so it's just a little newspaper letting me know exactly what I did is going to do, basically. I don't know why it bothers with this, but whatever. Yeah, so this game, you won't really see too much of it, simply due to the fact that it's difficult for me to do anything with it. And the Council of Ministers. What is it this time? Private plot farming. And here I believe I institute it completely rather than a scaled down version. I want to try to increase the food, because I figure if I increase the food, the people will be happy. And on top of being happy, they'll have an easier time doing more work when it really comes down to it. So yeah, I figure, hey, if they got more energy, they can work more, and so technically speaking, I could theoretically put less money into the creation of consumer goods and whatnot, and I should theoretically still create the same amount. That was more or less my thought process, but I don't think the game goes in depth to that extent. And here, the BBS, which is essentially this game's version of the BBC, and just like GNN is essentially this game's version of CNN, and this is just little letting me know, hey, yes, the rest of the world knows that you've instituted private farming and you've given 1,000,000 acres of land to private farmers. And here the Ministry of Propaganda and anti-alcohol. Here I don't even bother really looking at it, so you'll have to pause if you wanted to read that. But here I decided to raise alcohol prices to increase government revenues. I figure, hey, if I increase the prices, I'll get some more money, and it would theoretically cut down on alcohol. And I think it does somewhat work, but it doesn't save me when it comes down to it. So yeah. Here's Soviet Union broadcast. Let me know that protesters in Red Square challenged the new glasnost policies by burning Soviet flags and emblems. Which, obviously, I can't do anything about it. I can't. Even if I had, say, full law and order, I wouldn't be able to do anything. And this is just letting me know that they want my budget. And I figure where it says balanced, that it's so long as that isn't... I didn't know that balance is basically how much I have to spend at my disposal. So as I drop money into these things, and I was confused as to how to actually enter agriculture. I wanted to at least go with what the ministry wanted, but yeah, I eventually figured out that I need to hit enter down there. But theoretically, I might be able to hit enter on my actual keyboard to do the same. And I'm trying to. What I want to do is actually turn a profit, but it seems that the game doesn't really allow you to turn a profit. Because I have, in this case, 2,394 funds available, and I'm currently using 2,428. The only way I'd be able to turn a profit is to simply cut back on all of this, which I can't really do, because if I do that, then people are going to complain about there not being enough of everything. So yeah, here I believe I actually cut back a little bit on unemployment and pensions. I think I only bring it down to 110, and it's currently at 111, so yeah, here I kick up. I basically try to kick everything up to what the ministry wants, but not everything. No? I guess I leave unemployment and pensions where they stand. Thought I lowered them. Okay, whatever. I know I definitely don't raise them. Let's see. Do I raise or do I keep? Trying to figure out. Okay, well, I increase public works and roads and buildings. Okay. Nope, doesn't look like I do anything to unemployment and pensions. Okay, whatever. I thought I did. And here I try to increase my influence with like the media and whatnot. I don't bother with the troops because I'm not part of the hardline faction, so I figure why bother. And the ministry here has no recommendations because they can't have recommendations. This is all just personal influence. So I try to increase my influence with all the conservatives, the moderates, and liberals, which I think works out until I end up lowering it again. And I think that's one reason why the game ends when it does, because I lower my influence on them, and that obviously kind of made them angry. And all this stays the same. And I believe I end up going back to the main section with agriculture and whatnot, and then just say, okay, I'm done, approve. But don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure I do, because this is the last page of the budget. And the budget again doesn't go into effect until, I'm pretty sure it doesn't go into effect until the new year. Pretty sure that's the way it works in this case. And you can change it anytime you want, but so usually what you want to do is make sure you got leftover balance, just so that you can actually go and make adjustments as need be. In this case, I'm like, oh yes, you see, I've got some money left over than what if I were to go with everything the ministry wanted. So I decided to kick up some of this other stuff in production. I tend to round things to the nearest number, but I don't always do that. And I cut back on on imports, but I eventually because I've got leftover money, decide to bring it back up. But actually, as you'll see, is now I've got a lower budget than what the ministry would have done, because simply the ministry doesn't take into account anything under the influence category. That's all left up to me. And you can see in the middle, in the top section, it lists my gross national product, my assets, my foreign credit, and reserves, which my reserves are always in the negative because this game is a pain to try to get anything above that. And as you can see, I've got a pretty high approval rating. 82% approve my performance, 13 disapprove, and 5 don't know or refuse to answer. So that's fine by me. And my total population is 283. That's probably supposed to be in at least the, I don't know, I'm not sure. Obviously at least the thousands, but I don't think there would only be 283,000 people living in the Soviet Union. And here I decide to accelerate the process of glasnost by releasing all previously banned books, simply because I figure that'll make the people happy. And again, that's what I'm trying to do, is just make the people happy in this case. So that's what I do. But yeah, so I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure everything is basically in the thousands. So if it says you're investing, I don't know, 10 into something, you're, I believe, essentially putting 10,000 into it. And I've got productive population of 168, and again, if I'm correct that that's in the thousands, it's 160,000 people that are capable of producing things. And now we're in year 2, which would obviously be 1986, and I just kind of sit here. Now they're asking for my policy changes. I don't know if I actually changed my policies here. I think I end up screwing up and not adjusting them the entire time. But maybe I do adjust them here, I don't know. And you'll see I do make mistakes simply due to the fact that my approval rating is so high. Yeah, I don't change them there. And the BBS, I think here it's talking about Chernobyl. Let's see. Yep, it's about Chernobyl. Swedish scientists today detected abnormal amounts of radiation which appear to have originated in the Soviet Union. And a little bit I get a call going, "Oh my God, we need to figure out what to do about Chernobyl," basically is what it says. And here a hardline threat from Sergei Lysikov. I fairly certain I mispronounced that, but I don't care, whatever. From the Ministry of the Interior. Just letting me know that he doesn't approve of my policies and whatnot. Yeah, here's the Ministry of Propaganda talking about Chernobyl and what I want to do about it. Now, realistically, it probably would have been better if I had chosen to get foreign, where is it? Appeal for humanitarian technological assistance. I'm pretty sure I'd choose the first option to try to appease the hardliners, which I think does actually bring my approval rating up 1%. Apparently but see, the thing I find odd is that the Politburo is made up primarily of the hardliners, apparently. But here's where the issue comes into play, is that apparently they control the majority of the Politburo, which is essentially the Soviet Union's Congress. And the odd thing is that if they control the majority, why is it that when I do things that they consider radical, does my approval rating end up being above 50%? Because that approval rating is not for the actual citizens, that is the Politburo's approval rating of me, which doesn't make any sense how I get votes of confidence or votes of no confidence, and how I end up getting thrown out of office later on, and why I get threats from them, and yada 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 with issues. And here, one of the guys who basically supports me said today, yada yada yada. You'll have to pause it to read. Yeah, so I adjust the map just a little bit. I want to try to kind of solely focus on Eastern Germany and out west, but eventually, even though I can adjust it more, the game, for whatever reason, doesn't end up letting me adjust it. And again, this game really only has everything above the equator, so yeah. It doesn't, and everything, all issues really just take place in Europe. There's no reason to really bother looking at North America because nothing happens in Cuba from what I can tell. Now, theoretically, maybe if you make it far enough into the game, some things may happen in Cuba, but I don't see it. And here is talking about the budget again. Yada yada yada. My balance is now 0 simply because we actually have less money to spend now as it stands, and I try to adjust it, but they're like, oh no, you can't do that because that exceeds the balance. So yeah, but apparently if I did everything the ministry wanted, I would exceed the balance more than I already do, or than I would have if I had adjusted everything on its own. Because as you see down the bottom where it's lists the financial summary, it lists president and ministry. Under the ministry, the balance is negative 76. So if I went with everything they wanted, I would exceed the balance that it won't let me exceed anyway. The lowest I can go is 0, which is the thing that's odd, is that the lowest I can go is 0. Why is it that their recommendations can put me below 0? So I think the game gets more or less confused about what it wants. The game, they should have made sure that they set it up to where it can only tell you to do things within a certain way. Is that the ministry can only recommend things up until the balance is 0. And I end up cutting back on health and education and quite a few things. I think here's where I adjust unemployment and pensions down to 110. Yeah, there we go. I leave leisure and whatever that was where it is, just because I don't bother changing it. And here's where I cut back on my influence, which I think comes to bite me much further down the line. And I leave all of this economic aid, credit, research and development and whatnot where it is, and just go back to the front page, make some adjustments again now that I have a little bit more money to spend. And that's it, basically. I cut back on a few those things because I want to make sure I got even more money to spend. Actually, I think what I try to do here is actually make sure that I have more funds available, or I don't use more than the funds that are available, which is sort of where the issue comes into play. Is I cut back on troops and weapons and whatnot, and here I cut back on civil police and courts and yada yada yada. This section takes a little while, and yeah, as I said, the game has no music, so it's very quiet in these sections. It's too quiet for me, really. So yeah, so I just sit here waiting as I try to actually get a reasonably balanced budget, which actually doesn't frickin' matter because I lose, or my gross domestic product goes down like half by the next time the budget comes around, and I end up with a deficit limit of negative 1,000 something. And that's only because the funds available at that time are like 1,000 something themselves also, so yeah, just kind of get stuck waiting. I think in a couple of, I don't know, maybe 2 minutes, maybe something like that, I end up finally setting this up the way I want. I believe I put transportation and raw material. I think I set transportation to, yeah, I'm just a little bit over. I think I go with like 125 and 125 eventually. Yeah, I figured out, okay, I've got quite a bit there, so let's go with like 120 there, and let's go with 120 here and see how much. And I realized, okay, I've got 5 extra left over, and decided to go and put 5 extra into each of those 2 options there for transportation and raw materials. And now I wait just a little bit before I decide to actually approve, and there we go. And I believe I get a telegram or something. Nope, it's just the news broadcast. Which one is this about, though? I don't remember. Oh, demonstrators in Moscow today called for the release of Andrei Sakharov, the Nobel laureate turned political dissident. Yeah. And I think this is another thing that increases my approval rating by helped increase my approval rating by 1%. Yeah, not a whole lot. Or no, I think my approval rating went up 2%. Well, no, my approval rating went up 1%, but don't know / refused to answer went up 1% also, while the disagreement of my policies or my performance goes down 2%. And yeah, here I'm given the option of either releasing him and other political dissidents, only releasing him, holding him in prison, and I think a fourth option actually. But I could be wrong. It might only be 3 options. Nope, only 3. Okay. So I can leave him in exile to please the hardliners. I can release only him, or I can release him and some others. I just believe I decide to release only him, because I figure that's the easiest middle option. Because if I leave him in exile, that pisses off the people. If I release him and others, that pisses off the hardliners. But if I go with the middle option, the people will be happy that he's released, but the hardliners should be happy that I didn't release everyone. So yeah. And it looks like that's supposed to be some sort of like coffee or something that they got just sitting on the desk. And I don't think it's very warm anymore, because it's probably the exact same cup that's been there for a year now. And yeah, just let me know, yeah, okay, you released them, and this is what you said, and yada yada yada. Come on. Let's try to get to the next decision. Come on. Now it's just quiet for a little while. Oh, transportation low by some 24 billion. Okay. Looks like the budget's in billions, which actually is reasonable at least. But population I think is in thousands. Yeah, just let me know that my budget for transportation is far too low. And it's just letting me know here that there's a crisis in goods because goods aren't being transported. And or aren't really being... Not all goods are able to be transported, so I end up deciding, fine, I'll adjust the budget. But I was already planning to do so after I got the original mail just saying, hey, yeah, you need to adjust the budget for transportation. So I decided to throw some more money into those. But I'm not sure, I can't recall how much I throw into transportation. And I cut back on raw materials to try to make up for increasing transportation a little bit. Figured if I cut down on production, theoretically, it won't cause too much of an issue right away, and I can just adjust raw materials a little bit further down the line once I have the money to spend to do so. Again, that doesn't work out for me because simply my budget drops. Yeah, okay. No, I end up deciding to increase them to what the ministry wants, even though that causes issues for me financially. I say, oh well. I don't like how you got like no money in the reserves though. It's like, really? Got a foreign credit of 60, which is whatever, I guess, because the game doesn't really explain anything to you in this case. So I just adjust these things. I believe I actually lower imports again, or maybe I put them where the ministry wants again. I don't know. I just use it, try to figure out how it works the budget out for that. But you see, the thing is, for exports, shouldn't that increase my balance exports increase my balance while imports decrease my balance. You would think that's the way it works, but it looks like that doesn't work that way. So, I don't know why. Just, it is. So I decide to slightly adjust weapons to try to leave myself with 0 balance. But I believe I cut back again because I at least want some money left in the balance to spend on other things if anything were to arise. And yeah, employment went down from 1 green square to 3 yellow squares max. And yeah, my approval rating goes up 1, disapproval goes down 2, and don't know / refuse to answer goes up 1. So yeah, that's how the breakdown goes. I get that message from the KGB, apparently. I didn't actually notice that while playing. And another telegram, as you actually see, it's Glory Soviet Telex, and talking about food shortages. Which is kind of funny because I'm pretty sure just shortly after receiving this telegram about food shortages, I get information of, hey, yeah, we've got a breakthrough in food. The food situation is very bad now. All of Mr. Yadia's chickens were stolen, and there are almost no dogs left in the village. What are you gonna do about this? And then it's like immediately after this, I get a telegram telling me food's going up. Or, okay, victory in employment.